I am Tyler Bedson. I am the head coach and CEO of Built by Bedson LLC. So we are located in Lexington, Kentucky, but we coach clients from all over the nation, and we even have some in different countries. So uh, we basically take care of bodybuilding clients, powerlifters, strongman athletes. We have a lot of general nutrition. I've done MMA fighters, Major League Baseball players. So we kind of do it all, but primarily our focus and seems to be bodybuilding clients.
I noticed you have your bachelor's of science in exercise science. What was your thought process? What kind of, did you have a plan going in? Did you just know, hey, I'm interested in this sort of field? Like, what was it for you?
So originally I was actually a human nutrition major, and I wanted to go to medical school. Um, I did human nutrition, and when I finally got into the real courses of it, it was all about, diets for people that were going to basically die or stay the same. And it was a lot of stuff I didn't really want to work with. It was like, nutrition for infants. And so I switched my major pretty quickly to exercise science, which, taught me more about what I was wanting to do, which was athletes. So the nutrition side of things was more sports nutrition. So I started learning things more in line with, football players, basketball players, tennis. And then, I was doing bodybuilding myself. I actually competed in my first show whenever I was my second year at University of Kentucky. So I started learning a lot about how nutrition applied to that and how the training applied to that while I was going to school. So that was kind of when I first got into this as well. When I first got into coaching was during my time at University of Kentucky. Whenever I first started actually doing bodybuilding, I was told by a lot of people at the gym, like, hey, why don't you try this out? I had no idea really what it was, to be honest with you. I had a lot of people come up to me and they're like, why don't you try bodybuilding? So I started looking into it more, and I finally found myself a coach, which was a local guy at the gym who was about my height. I'm short, I'm 5'4". So I saw another guy that was already doing bodybuilding. He was a much older guy. He was in the master's divisions, and, he was about to become pro. So I asked him for advice. So I learned a lot through him, actually. I would say that learning those things through him, I started to apply to myself and then apply to people that wanted to start working with me. It was at University of Kentucky whenever I was going through that prep that a lot of people would come up to me and be like, how did you get so lean? I was probably the leanest person at the Johnson Center, which is the UK rec center. I was probably the leanest person there. So a lot of the guys would come up to me and be like, how did you get like this? And I would tell them what I was doing, and I would learn new ways to do it. By reading and going through forums and, trying new things on myself. So eventually I had not the entire school, but a very large majority of people coming to me for advice. So I decided to start charging money for it and um, giving them my strategies and guiding them in what I was doing.
How do you think that you have grown almost in managing, not necessarily egos, but managing people's mentality?
That's a great question, actually, and that I will tell you, out of all the classes I had at University of Kentucky, there was one that really stood out to me, and it was sports psychology, and it was taught by professor named Mark Cormier, and I took two classes with him, and I almost came back afterwards to do. I almost thought about getting my master's in sports psychology because of him, because of how much I still use that class to this day. Because a lot of bodybuilding and general nutrition and getting people results is really getting them to adapt a mentality and being able to read that person and how they work. So if you're able to communicate with somebody in a way that helps them to perform better, that's where a lot of these results come from, is learning how to build a relationship with each person so that they can become their absolute best self. And I think a lot of people forget that, you have to be able to build a mentality and build stuff together so that you can reach these heights, because it, it it becomes such a mental challenge, especially like it's a physical and mental sport, of course, but when you get down to the end of it, a lot of it is very mental, and you have to be able to get through these small obstacles and struggles to be victorious.
So, with that being said, I'm sure there's some type of, quote unquote perfect client, or even if it's not a perfect client, kind of a niche client. How do you kind of decide this is somebody that, is worth taking on, or this is somebody that's serious about what they want? Like how do you kind of go about choosing a client?
A lot of it comes down to, talking with them initially. So when people inquire with me, and a lot of people know this, I ask a ton of questions first. I ask for pictures. I ask what their goals are. I ask what their timeline is. And then normally I'm expecting them. I ask another question too. I ask, are you doing this for fun or do you want to win? And, if they tell me that they're just doing it for fun, I'm probably not the main person to work with. Um, of course, it's a competition, so I want the person to win. So I ask a lot of questions. I do some phone calls if I need to. We kind of discuss things back and forth. And then as long as they're willing to do stuff based on my honest opinions, normally I'll take them on. A lot of people don't like to hear what I have to say. They'll inquire and they'll be like, I want to do a show in August and it's, June. And I'm like, well, I have no idea anything about you. I don't know anything about your body. You have no idea how to train in my style. You don't know how diets work yet. So we have no idea how you're going to respond. So we're going into this guessing. So if they're willing to kind of do things in my way, I'm willing to give most people a chance. But I've kind of proven at this point, like, hey, you work with me for a whole year, this is what can happen. And I've shown that with so many people now that you really can't deny it. I'm like, okay, well, this person worked with me for a whole year. That's why their body looks like this. That's why they won. That's why they got their pro card. So it really is dependent on if somebody is willing to do the work outside of the actual competition prep and listen to do all the small stuff a lot of people don't like to do.
What are some of those things that you've learned throughout, just being a coach, that are some of those things like, wow, I'm glad I learned that lesson and I'm not going to either do that again, go down that road again, whatever that situation may be?
If I've learned, if somebody there's very big signs if somebody's uncoachable or unwilling to do the work, and I'm one that I want to see everybody get results, and I will, I go above and beyond, which sometimes doesn't pay off. Some people just don't want to listen or don't want to do what they're told. So I've realized one thing I probably learned is don't take on every single person. You can't help everybody. It's impossible. And some people are just uncoachable. You can tell them to do something, they'll do the complete opposite, or they think they know their bodies better than you do. But my question at that point as a coach is like, why are you paying me? What's the point of this relationship if you can't trust me to guide you to your overall goal?
They might even say it, but what do you think the reasoning behind that is? Is it almost to have, do you think it's almost to have like a scapegoat for when things don't go their way?
Yeah, I mean, I've 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 had people in preps before cheat on their diet or, fall off in some way or do less cardio or not listen the week before show. And I don't know if it's like a pride thing. I'd assume so. It's like they think they know better. In reality, it's like they don't. It's hard to mentally get past all those things whenever it comes to weeks before show because you're not fully there emotionally or mentally. So it's nice to have somebody to tell you, hey, this is what you need to do, or reassure you. And some people just aren't able to take that and trust that person. So they make a lot of hasty decisions instead, which ultimately leads to failure.
Right. And kind of in the opposite direction, like what characteristics make a top tier competitor, whether that's competitor is the most successful or not, but like just a top tier competitor in general?
Number one, of course, is adherence to the plan. How well they can simply do exactly what's on the paper 100%. So, if I say eat this and it's 75 grams of rice, then they weigh out exactly 75 grams of rice each time. And they eat the same meal every day at the same time. They go to sleep at the same time. They train at the same time, wake up at the same time. It's a lot of consistency over time. And it also is being self-motivated, because I like to tell a lot of people, even with general nutrition, with competition, with anything you want to do, it's all self-motivated. Nobody can force you to get up off the couch and do these things. Nobody can force you to make the time in your schedule to go to the gym or go do your cardio every day or eat your meals. Like, nobody's telling you to do this. So self-motivation is key as well. And then mindset of intensity. So a lot of people really can't break past a certain threshold. So that's one of the things that, I was talking to you about earlier, is I make people work with me for an extended period of time before I allow them to compete or prep in a show. The reason for that is it allows them to see my intensity levels of training that I expect to get these bodies built the way they are. So a lot of these people that work with me, and when you see the final product, a lot of people aren't seeing every single thing we've done every week to really challenge that person to build that body and that final product to put on stage.
Obviously going too hard is an issue, but do you feel like that's an issue for some people really, or do you just think that having the right program will push somebody hard enough to where they understand that it's hard enough?
Well, that's the thing, is I actually got two spectrums of that recently. I got a new client, and she's awesome, has a great shape. She could probably, compete in the show, but she has no intentions of doing so. But on the other hand, she's eating less than some of my girls that competed this past weekend, and she's doing more cardio. So, I've had to tell her, like, I put her food way up at a spot where it's supposed to be at. I dropped down her activity levels. I dropped down her training. And to her, it's kind of like, she's kind of questioning it at first, but she's trusting the process, which some people are doing way too much. That's majority. It's either they come to me and they're doing way too much and eating way too little, or they're not doing anything at all.
Where do you think most people go wrong when it comes to like making the difference in a competition to, be on that next level?
I think a lot of people overuse supplements and drugs and anabolics and don't put an emphasis on diet and training and sleep. So, of course, like, if I were to put everything in order, I would be like, diet's number one, training, is number one with it, sleep, and then, of course, water, digestion, all those things matter. And then, it kind of supplement all of that. So I think a lot of people put the supplements first and think those are the magic trick, when in reality, it's everything else that, matters more. It matters that you follow your diet correctly. It matters that you do your cardio. It matters that you train with intent. It matters that you have the same sleep schedule and you're getting to sleep every night. It matters that, you drink your water every day. But a lot of people think, oh, okay, if I use this steroid or use this supplement, I'm going to get to my results faster. And they skip the other parts.
Do you ever feel like you almost have to put somebody on like just a human body reset?
Yeah, I'll have some people start with me and they were doing it, let's say, all wrong for, 5 years. And, like, I'm not saying wrong, like, there's so many different ways to do this, but, when you're tearing down your body for years with supplement usage and under eating or overeating or training 7 days a week, and then they come to me and the first thing I tell them to do is, let's get blood work done and let's go ahead and knock your training down to 4 or 5 days a week, and let's drop all that cardio and let's put your food at a better area and let's apply nutrient timing. Yeah, that is a reset in a way, 100%. We're doing something in a completely different strategy that most people, have never experienced. So then the changes of that are dramatic because they're finally doing something that their body is responding to, rather than, just throwing everything at it in the kitchen sink method.
Do you ever have almost like person A saying, I wish I was doing person B's thing, and why can't I be doing it like they're doing it, and blah, 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 blah?
Oh yeah. I do things so differently for each person because everybody's body is different. But that's been the case in some ways because, for example, we could have two different females prepping for a show, and one could have a burger and fries every week and still lose weight. And the other one, if we give them a burger and fry, could dramatically increase in weight, and it doesn't do the same response. So it's reading each person, and everybody's different. You know, some people are genetically better, some people's metabolisms are better. Uh, like for example, with me, to grow muscle in the off season, like whenever I'm not competing, I have to eat a ton of food. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's not even fun. It's not enjoyable. I really just don't enjoy that part of bodybuilding. But when it comes to cutting for me, it's like I can cut off. It's so simple, you know. But for some other people, it's the opposite. For them to grow, they can eat barely any food, and it's so easy for them to get it in. But then for them to cut, it takes, you know, close to zero carbs. So everybody's different. And yeah, you know, I do have to explain that sometimes to people like, hey, this is the reason that person gets that. But majority of our clients understand, you know, it's a different process for each individual.
How has social media played a role in the way that you coach?
Well, you know, I always tell people this, and it's sad, but if I didn't run this business, I probably would not have social media. Um, I'm not as active as some other coaches. I do my work in silence. People recognize us for our work, and that's kind of how I like it. But you know, I like the strategy of word of mouth, which is what we've always done. You know, so if you look at my story, it's a lot of clients sharing what they're doing and tagging me or tagging Bill by Bedson or tagging Laura or Austin, which are other two coaches. And, you know, really happy that they're part of what we've created and the atmosphere we've built. So I think a lot of people see that, which is why I am active on social media. So people can see that, see our personalities, see the quality of athlete that we produce, which I think is a very important thing when searching for a coach, is seeing the results and then seeing that athlete happy and still with you even after there's results, you know, and how well they're doing at all stages.
What do you think makes the way that you do it, you know, the whole thing, the whole package? What do you think makes you different than just somebody else out there, you know, helping people in their bodybuilding journey?
I'd say, well, first of all, there are a lot of good coaches. I would say that, and I'm friends with a lot of them. But one thing that we are very big on is quality of service and communication. So, you know, we're available almost hours a day. Like me and Laura, of course, we're married, we live together. But if one of our clients messages us while we're relaxing at night, we know, hey, it's better to just answer it and help them rather than get upset with them or, you know, ignore them. So what I've had and gotten a lot of clients from is other coaches who, you know, their client asks them a question, they just ignore it, or they didn't read their check-in form, or they ask a question, they're berated for messaging after 6 p.m. But, you know, the way we do things is I built such quality relationships with each client that allows me to, that it's so much easier for us to get progress because they're not afraid to talk to me or mention their problems so that I can solve them or troubleshoot what we need to do to be the best we possibly can be. A lot of people I realize no longer have social skills. And I think that is a big thing with coaching. And I tell people this all the time. If you do not have good social skills and a good ability to talk to people, and if you do not love people, coaching is not for you. And I see a lot of people fall out of it because they just can't handle it. You have to love people. You have to want to see them succeed. You have to be able to talk to a variety of different people with different personalities and adapt to be able to um, communicate with them. And like you said, a lot of people just don't have that now, and it's not common to have good customer service. Like I went into supplement stores before, like GNCs or, you know, vitamin shops, and they don't even greet you anymore. It's just like, you know, they just stare at you or they're on their phone. And the sad thing is you have that with coaching in the fitness world too. Like you will check in, you'll send a lot of questions, and you'll get a thumbs up emoji as the response instead of, you know, actual feedback.
Right. And when it comes to like what you're saying, I think it becomes like being authentic and being, you know, a caring person. And with that, you know, the competition side of things, that I feel like is, as an athlete, you're really putting yourself out there. You're exposing all the work that you've done, But when it comes to an athlete who doesn't necessarily get the result they want, that I'm sure that can be pretty hard. And as a coach, you're the person that can help them with that. And I'm sure they're the person that they come to you with that. How do you help somebody with that? To say, okay, yeah, we didn't get what we thought we were going to get or what we wanted, but here's what we're going to do.
Well, I'm the most honest person in the world, so some people don't like that. Some people can't handle it, but if somebody loses, I'm immediately tell them why they lost. Like I literally, as soon as I get off stage, if you're my client or not my client, if you want to know why you lost, I'll tell you. And it sometimes that sucks to hear, but that's what you got to do. And then you make plans from there. You get feedback from the judges. I normally know what needs to be done right off the bat, but we get that additional feedback just to make sure. And we put a plan into action. Some people cannot accept defeat. I've had some people before lose, and I mean, they'll break their trophy or it's just, they do something where it's like they can't handle it. And those are honestly people I just don't want to work with. If you can't take constructive criticism in a subjective sport where it is literally chosen by judges and what they like that day, then you probably shouldn't do this.
And do you feel like, that's sometimes something that you can see coming, especially with experience?
Yeah, and like if I notice that, I honestly, if we have clashing personalities with somebody, I don't take them on anymore, or I recommend they work with somebody else. I have had to drop clients in the past or tell them we need to go separate ways because of how they've acted or their inability to follow the plan or execute. Because as a coach, like I know I've proven what I can do if somebody listens, and it's very obvious, like at this point, which clients aren't following the plan. So in that situation, maybe somebody is better for them to work with, and maybe another style of coaching may be better, and that's just the fact of the matter.
And we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but maybe just like, in your opinion, what would be that X factor, for a bodybuilder that takes them to the highest of high levels?
That's all mentality and discipline. Discipline is probably the key to bodybuilding. If you can't stay disciplined year round in some way to make sure that you're getting to your goals, then you're not going to get the results. Discipline's 100%. So if anybody ever is watching my profile and you see some of my athletes that look the way they do, it's because they're disciplined. They eat their meals, they pack them with them wherever they go. They're always prepared. They do their cardio every day. They train hard every day. They try to get new weights or train with more intensity each time they go to the gym. They really just follow and execute every single thing I put in their plan every single day. And that's the key. Discipline and consistency over time will make you great. This is, I always tell people with bodybuilding or any physique goal, if you're a general nutrition client, as long as you stay disciplined for an extended period of time, you will look back at your pictures from when you first started and you will be seriously amazed at what can happen.
And how do you kind of react to and help someone who has these great ambitions and they might even have the work ethic and the discipline, but they just aren't going to get there?
It's hard because you try to teach this and you try to mention it, and some people have all the genetics in the world and the ability to get so far, but they just cannot emotionally or mentally handle the challenges put forth to them. Like I've seen people fall off for the craziest of reasons, and it's just like, if you can't stick with something because of that or overcome obstacles, then there's really not much you can do as a coach. And I've seen people that are just insane athletes, incredible physiques, but they can't follow a plan, so they always fall short. And it's just how it is. Discipline, like I've always said, hard work and discipline will always beat genetics in every situation.
What advice would you have? Somebody who may be kind of into the world of fitness. They've been working out for a while. They really enjoy it. They like the whole thing, but they're not competing yet. What advice would you have for someone who maybe wants to start competing?
I would say invest in a coach early. And it doesn't have to be like a hardcore bodybuilding coach to start. Like a lot of my clients come to me from a coach like that did general nutrition first. Like for example, my client Audra, she's competing for her pro card soon, but before she worked with me, she worked with a general nutrition coach named Savannah Joy, who I actually like quite a bit. I think she's a great coach, but Savannah taught her all the basics of food and training and like how to get into it. And then after she learned that, she came to me, and now her transformed her body because she already had that knowledge of food and she had that basic knowledge of training. But I always recommend to people to start with a coach early if you're serious about this. Get with somebody that is, and don't waste your time. That's the thing. Like if you're going to try to figure this out yourself, it's so much easier and you're skipping a lot of steps if you just get somebody to tell you what to do and how to do it. And then you'll get a lot farther a lot faster.
Appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was cool to get to talk to you. And if people want to reach out or if they just want to follow what you're doing, where can they do that?
My Instagram is at Tyler_Bedson, and our business page where we show off a lot of our clients is at Built by Bedson, which is BEDSON.